Bentornati sul canale come sempre. Stasera penso di avere un'opportunità non indifferente di poter parlare con uno dei più grandi batteristi jazz rock, fusion, qualsiasi cosa si voglia dire, però io penso che sia veramente una diretta con i fiocchi. Stasera parlerò con Lenny White, non ha bisogno di presentazioni, Jaco Pastorius, Miles Davis, Chick Corea, Chaka Khan, Al Di Meola. Quindi, come sempre, vi invito, entro 2 giorni arriveranno i sottotitoli, spero. Vi invito comunque ad iscrivervi, chi non mi conosce, chi mi conosce segua pure questa diretta. Quindi buona visione. Hi Lenny.
How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. And you?
Good, good.
Let me ask you the first thing, because when I have an important guest like you, I want to ask you later the past. Now I want to ask you your future. What you do now? I know that you are a professor in a New York university. Tell us about your new life in teaching.
Well, no, I've been teaching for a while. If there's anything that is kind of new, is I've written a few pieces that are concert music for orchestra.
Okay.
And I've been having them performed. And the NYU Orchestra did some of my pieces. And the Aspen Music Festival, I wrote a percussion ensemble.
Okay.
And it was performed at the Aspen Music Festival in August. And I'm in the process of, excuse me, writing some new music. And hopefully that will be performed in Italy too.
Okay. In my town, because I live near Milan. I don't know if you came here. The city is Brescia. If you had, if you have to put it down, the dates, the tour dates, remember my city.
Okay, sure.
And your job in teaching in New York University, what do you do with your students? What is your point of view in teaching? Do you like it?
I don't just teach drums.
Okay.
Teach music.
Oh.
And I have a few different classes that I teach. I have 2 lecture classes. I teach, there's a program called the Miles Davis Aesthetic. And I talk and teach about recording Bitches Brew.
Okay.
And then there's another class that I teach with a doctor. And it's called Performing Arts in Global Cultures. And it's about an eclectic analysis of all kinds of musics. And then I have my ensemble, and I have personal students. And I also teach at the New School University too.
It is very beautiful, this thing, because when I talk with some of the drummers in the USA, I think that there is so much passion to improve the students, to teaching not only the technique of the drumming, of the drums, but the classical story of the music. The history, sorry. It is very different from Italy, because when I talked with you the first time, I said to you that I am a drummer. Mm-hmm. And I studied from now I'm 38 and I begin to play at 5 or 6. But I began to study with an important drummer in Italy. If you, I don't know if you know it. It is called Alfredo Golino.
No, I don't know.
No, I don't think so, because in Italy, our drummer, in the USA, our drummers are not so popular. I don't know if you know.
Well, it doesn't. It's a very interesting point. You say popular.
Popular.
I don't think the intention. Well, it shouldn't be the attention. I mean, the intention of drummers should not to be popular. It should be to be the best that they could be,
Okay.
and to really demonstrate and be representative of the music that they play. And if they're good, then they become popular.
It is a right point of view.
It's the only
Because
point of view.
yes, it is the only. Because if I return to my past, I will go in the USA to study. Because when I talk with another colleague of you, Skip Hadden, he was in the weather report. He said to me that it is important to have not only the teaching of drumming, not only the technique, but a global thing. And the most important thing, like you said, it is to be the best in your genre. I think so.
Well, being the best, I don't think anyone could be the best.
No, the best.
Because the best means that you do everything better than anybody else, all different kinds of musics. And I don't know if anybody could be the best. I think that the best that you could be is be a good representative of the kinds of musics that you're trying to present. And if you can be the best representative of the different types of musics that you're presenting, that's the best that you could do. Because no one could be better than anybody else.
No.
In one particular thing. No.
Yes, it is an important lesson. Now, let's talk about your beginnings. When you decided to become a drummer, when you was young, I think so.
14.
And the first gig, you remember?
The first gig, was like in my neighborhood, and we had a band of my friends.
Yes.
And one of my friends who was in the band, his father was a police officer, and they had a function, and we played at the function, and they passed a hat around, and they gave money, and we got paid. That was my first professional gig, and that was like about 15 years old.
14 years old. It is very, very young. But I think that in those days, you are a self-taught drummer, or you studied with so many different books?
No, I never used books at all.
No books.
I'm a self-taught drummer. Yeah.
If
I listen to the music, and fortunately for me, I got an opportunity to meet the Magnificent Seven, all the great drummers, and I asked questions, and I watched. So
you say to me the Magnificent Seven because I've heard an interview on YouTube, and you talk about these 7 drummers.
Yes.
And when you say Kenny Clark,
yes,
for me it is an important drummer. And sometimes Kenny Clark, they don't talk about this beautiful drummer, this important drummer.
Who doesn't talk about that? Who? See, that's the whole point. The whole point is you have to look at your references and where you get your information from. And so if the people that you listen to
Hmm?
or follow don't mention Kenny Clark, then you shouldn't follow them, because Kenny Clark is the originator of bebop drumming.
But I think that Lenny, so many people, not only the classical drummers, but I think that keyboardist, guitarist, or someone else, so many people doesn't know about the godfather of the drum, of the bass, of the guitar, and I think that in this case of drummers, these 7 people was very important for the evolution of the drums.
Well, for definitely the evolution of modern jazz drumming. You can't go past these. Now there's swing drumming too. I mean, there Papa Joe, Buddy Rich, they're swing drummers, not jazz drummers. Yes, they're swing drummers, and that's where it starts, and then it morphs into bebop, and the bebop drummers, the modern drummers that I talk about as the Magnificent Seven, that is the evolution of how the drums are played today.
Can you recall the Magnificent Seven for my audience? Because so many people doesn't know.
Kenny Clark.
First.
Art Blakey.
Second.
Max Roach. Philly Joe Jones. Elvin Jones. Roy Haynes. Tony Williams.
And about Tony Williams, I want to ask you, before you play with Miles Davis, can you recall? Can you tell to my people where you met Miles Davis?
Where I met him?
Yes.
Miles Davis called my house and asked me to come and see him. And
with his voice.
No. Yeah, he asked me to come to his house and have a rehearsal.
Okay.
And at the rehearsal was Chick Corea, Dave Holland, Jack DeJohnette, Wayne Shorter. No, not at the rehearsal. Not at the rehearsal. And Wayne Shorter and Miles, Chick, and Miles. And he asked me to bring a snare drum and a ride cymbal, and that's it. And all we rehearsed is the introduction to Bitches Brew. That's what we rehearsed.
Because Bitches Brew, the most important thing of this album, 1970, was
we recorded it in 1969.
1969, before 1 year. But I want to ask you the recording technique of the channels right and left. Mm-hmm. You was on the right and the left.
I'd have to go listen to it to tell you. But yeah, it was switched that way. It was stereo. Yeah.
And what are your memories about the recording session of Bitches Brew?
This changed my life. That's the first record I ever made.
Okay. Yes, it was the first.
And, I was very young. And, I got an opportunity to, record with Miles Davis. And it was very, very special.
A big opportunity.
It set my life. I had when I was 17, I heard 7 Steps to Heaven.
Okay.
And on 7 Steps to Heaven, the drummer was 17 years old when he made the record. And that drummer was Tony Williams. So immediately, Tony Williams became the guy that I wanted to follow. And in doing that, um, he gave me a musical direction. And 2 years later, I got the opportunity to play with Miles Davis. So, I was on a mission.
And Tony Williams was your friend.
Yeah, yeah. Anthony Williams was responsible for me playing on Bitches Brew and on Red Clay.
Okay. So, so Tony Williams was a guru for you,
Yes.
as you said, and I
Yes.
think that it was an important drummer. And later, after Miles Davis,
Yeah.
before Return to Forever, in those years, you played with someone else.
Freddie Hubbard, Woody Shaw,
Santana.
Yes.
Castanets.
Yes.
Caravanserai.
Yes.
Caravanserai was the
Yes.
album.
Yes. Azteca.
Azteca.
Yes.
It is a rare. It is very rare vinyl. It is very difficult to find it.
Well, what happened is, I had recorded with Azteca, and I was in San Francisco. And while I was in San Francisco, I got a call from Chick Corea from Japan.
Oh.
And he said that he was coming, he and Stanley were going to come from Japan and come to San Francisco and play at the Keystone Corner. And he wanted to know if I wanted to play. We do a trio.
Mm.
And I said yes, because I was already in San Francisco. So they came and we played for a week at Keystone Corner. And the last night on the Sunday, Chick had 2 guitar players sit in with just the trio, Stanley, Chick, and myself. And Barry Finnerty and Billy Connors came to sit in. And they sat in, and Chick at that night came to me and he said, listen, I want to start an electric Return to Forever. So this was not going to be like with Flora, Purim, and Airto and Joe Farrell. It was not going to be like that anymore. It was going to be an electric Return to Forever. And so he asked me to be a part of it. And I said, no, I'm going to stay and play with Azteca. So they went back to New York.
Mm-hmm.
And Steve Gadd played, did some gigs with them. And while that happened, I was still in San Francisco. And on the record that I had made with Azteca, Neil Sean had played on the record.
Okay, before Journey.
So while I was in San Francisco, Herbie Herbert, the manager, called me and said, hey, listen, would you like to do a jam with Neil and Ross Valerie? I said, sure, okay. So we went to SIR in San Francisco, and the 3 of us jammed and played, and they loved the way it turned out. So now, while this is happening, Steve Gadd decides that he wants to stay in the studio. He doesn't want to go on the road with Chick. And so Chick calls me and says, listen, Gadd's going to stay in the studio. You're the first person I ask, and I'd really like for you to come back and do this. And I said, okay, I'll do that. So I was going to come back and play with Return to Forever. But while I'm in San Francisco still, I did this jam session with Ross Valerie and Neil Sean. And I knew Greg Rowley because Greg was in Santana.
He was the keyboardist.
But now he was leaving. And so they asked me to join this new band that they were making. The band was Neil, Ross, and Greg, and the band was Journey. But
And later
but
came
no,
Dunbar.
yes, no. But the fact is, I decided to go back to play with Chick, so I didn't do Journey, and Ansley Dunbar came in,
Okay.
and he was the first drummer
Drummer.
with, and then Steve Smith followed after that.
Oh, sure.
So yeah, but that's when I was
It is a
in
complex.
Return to Forever. Yeah.
It is a complex situation because in those days, maybe if you think about, you became the drummer of Journey, and in the Return to Forever, who play the drums? Nobody knows.
No.
But you
now,
choose good.
Also, Miles Davis came to a gig I played with Bobby Moses and Steve Grossman and Dave Liebman. And between sets, he asked me, did I want to play with Jimi Hendrix? And I said, no.
No. Why no?
Because I love Miles Davis. I wanted to play with Miles Davis, so.
Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
Because there was, I think that it knows an urban legend, because Jimi Hendrix was in contact with Miles Davis to do an album. But
later, and Miles was
died.
trying to put a band together for Jimmy too. And that's why he asked me, did I want to play? So
super group. You, Miles Davis, Jimi Hendrix, and for the bass, I don't know what was the bassist.
Stanley Clark.
Stanley Clark, or maybe Alfonso Johnson, maybe.
Oh, well, I made a record with Alfonso Johnson and guitar player. That was actually his first record, Alan Holsworth. And
yes, from Soft Machine. Yes.
Yeah, and it was called Velvet Darkness, I think.
Velvet Darkness, yes.
But now what happened is Creed Taylor didn't like me, so he took me off, and Nato went and played on the record.
Narada Michael, yes.
Yes, but it was kind of weird, but Alan didn't like that record. He liked the record that I did with him, but Creed Taylor didn't put that out. So
Velvet Darkness was the first album when he came to the USA, because in England he was very popular with Soft Machine, with UK with Bill Bruford, another one. And I think that there is a difference between the jazz rock in England and the jazz rock in the USA. In England, there was Brand X with Phil Collins, because I am a Genesis fan. And when I've heard for the first time Brand X, there was a difference. But in Brand X, later, there was Kenwood Leonard.
No, before that, I think, too, Mike Clark played with Brand X, too.
Yes, in Masks. The album was Mask. Yes, Phil Collins was in and out, and later Mike Clark.
Mm-hmm.
But Lenny, your experience with Return to Forever, it is huge. I think that I don't want to be so big, but you are the godfather of the fusion drumming. I don't want to be so honest, but for me, Lenny, you are, when I was very young, you are an inspiration for me, because when I was 13, the first album that I've heard was No Mystery, and the groove when I play for the first time Jungle Waterfall, for me. Lenny, Jungle Waterfall. Stuck, so very funk. Tan tan ta dan ta dan
Dun,
ton.
dun, dun, dun.
Wow,
Yeah.
Lenny was for me for a 14 years old, because in Italy not so much young musician listen to this music.
Right, right.
There was
Right.
the prog rock, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, King Crimson. Okay, very important, because when I was 14 years old and I speak to my friends, listen to this album
Yeah.
or Hymn of the Seven Galaxy. They said to me, "You are crazy," but not. Listen to this drama.
Yeah.
Celebration.
Celebration
Celebration
Street.
Part 1, there is a classical march. Very Spanish thing. Very Spanish.
Yeah.
Sticking.
Yeah.
Sticking. If you think about your technique and you listen, in my case, I see the classical method when I study stick control, modern training, or Charlie Wilcoxon drum marches. It is very. It is you. You was in those days a pioneer in this field, like Stanley and like your colleague Di Meola, Al. For
See,
me, Return to Forever was an important portion, like musician portion, with some people, some different personalities.
see, yes, yes. It was a very good mesh because it was different. Everybody wasn't just from the same place. But the thing about Return to Forever that's different than all of the other prog rock and jazz rock bands is that the rhythm section, drums, bass, and piano, were jazz musicians. Chick Corea, Stanley Clark, and myself were jazz musicians. We played with jazz out of jazz bands and jazz icons. And then we came and played our version of. That's why what we did was not fusion. What we did was jazz rock, because
Jazz rock.
we were jazz musicians and we were playing our version of rock and roll.
Later called fusion in the 90s, but
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
70s was jazz rock.
Yes.
Jazz rock. Because
Yes.
Stanley played jazz with, if I don't want to make an error, with Horace Silver. No, Stanley.
Yes. That's how I met him, with Horace
Okay.
Silver. He played with Horace Silver. He played with Dexter Gordon. He played with Art Blakey, Stan
The icons.
Getz. Yeah,
The
he played. So we all played. We played with Joe Henderson together. I mean, so there were instances where the musicians from the jazz vernacular came into the rock vernacular. And that's the start of what became this jazz rock fusion. Because Miles Davis was the icon of jazz. And he decided, with Bitches Brew, he decided to call people that were playing in his band and then people outside of his band that played jazz music and combine them for his vision of how he wanted to play rock and roll. This was Miles Davis's version of rock and roll with John McLaughlin, so.
Yes, I think that Miles in those days was very full of music, and so many times jazz critics said that Miles Davis in the classic era of jazz rock was no good one. It is not a good thing, because Miles in those days was very full of great ideas. If you think about On the Corner, on the corner, in my point of view, in drumming was a beautiful thing. If you think about that Miles was inspired by Stockhausen.
But he was inspired by Stockhausen and James Brown.
Yes.
See, there was no fence. There was no wall. It wasn't like Stockhausen over here, and no, you can't do that with James Brown. No, they were combined
together.
You know, and that's what is great. That's what was the potential of those things happening, was what fueled the music at that time. So one of my most favorite things that I've seen and heard was James Brown and Pavarotti.
Luciano Pavarotti. Okay.
See, fantastic. And it was the meaning of the two different aesthetics.
Classical, musical, and soul.
Yes, and soul. And see, before that, no, you cannot do that. No, this kind of music. No. But Bitches Brew started the perception that you could take these different kinds of musics and make a new kind of music with it.
Like a melting pot.
See, it's fantastic. I think to do that, to have the ability to at least try to do that is important. And I think that's what fueled the direction of music.
And when you talk about jazz rock, the last album, when you played with Return to Forever, Romantic Warrior, in this case, this album was jazz rock and, in my point of view, a little bit prog, because if you think about
sure, no, I agree, because I was listening to Yes,
okay,
King Crimson. See,
the musician, musician.
That's what I was listening to, and Led Zeppelin.
Okay,
and that's what I was listening to, and I kind of brought that perspective into Return to Forever.
Because Romantic Warrior, for me, was a mature classical fusion record. Because if you think about medieval or overture or the musician, in the musician, I've heard so many Robert Fripp sounds like Crimson, and your drumming was like Phil Collins. Yes, Phil Collins in Brand X, very fast, very precise, very cool.
Yeah.
Because you are the first one who play in the classic or open way.
I don't know if Billy Cobham played like that too.
And Simon Phillips later.
Well, later on, Simon Phillips played like that. Yeah.
Billy Cobham, what is your relation with Billy Cobham?
Billy Cobham and I go back really many. Okay. In 1966, 66, 67, we were in a competition together in New York City. There was a group called Jazz Interactions, and they had a competition, and the competition was to take young jazz bands, and there were young jazz bands that were competing for a night at the Village Gate.
Okay.
Big club in New York City. Yes. So if you won the competition, your band would play at the Village Gate. This competition, these were the different bands. I was in a band called the Contemporary Jazz Quartet, and Danny Mixon played piano, and then there was a vibist by the name of Bob Barker, and William Bennett was the bass player, and he was supposedly um, Paul Chambers' cousin.
Okay, good job.
Now,
Great one.
the other band, there was another band that was, I think it was Weldon Irvine, and Weldon Irvine's band had, I think Benny Maupin played on with Weldon Irvine. There was a band called the Free Spirits with Larry Coryell
Okay,
and Jim Pepper.
okay.
And there was a band called the Jazz Samaritans that had saxophone player Bernard Scavella, bass player was Clint Houston, the piano player was George Cables, trombone player was R.D. Simmons, and the drummer was Billy Cobham. And so that band won. The Jazz Samaritans won. And they played at the Village Gate. Now, Billy Cobham was living in Jamaica, Queens, where I'm from. And he played with Weldon Irvine and Weldon Irvine's band. And then when Billy went and played with Horace Silver,
Yes.
I played in Weldon's band. And so when Billy's band won the competition, he went and played with Horace Silver. And then the Jazz Samaritans asked me to be in their band. So Billy was in my neighborhood. I mean, like he was older than me, but so he was one of the guys that we all listened to when we were young. So I've known Billy since I was like 16. So we have a relationship. We go back that far, and yeah, we've been friends for 50 years, 60 years.
And you said that he was the first one with the open-handed.
That's
technique.
I saw him.
One.
I saw him play open-handed technique. Yeah,
it is very difficult because.
No, I've seen Tony do that too.
Okay.
I saw Tony play like that. So,
I think that in my point of view, there was a very different styles in those days.
Sure.
And there was Bill Cobham, there was Tony Williams. Let's talk about your adventure with Jaco Pastorius.
Yeah.
The first album.
Yes. I got a call from Bobby Colombi, who was the original drummer and originator of Blood, Sweat, and Tears, the Blood, Sweat, and Tears band. And Bobby had become a producer. He wasn't playing anymore. He had become a producer. And he called me and he said that, there's a young bass player that would like you to be on his album. And would you come to do it? I said, yeah, sure, no problem. And I got to meet Jaco. And, it was great. We recorded some up in Bobby's studio, which is, I think what was it? Not in New Jersey, but upstate New York. And we would play and then go outside and play basketball and come back and play. And then we went into the city and recorded while we were in Manhattan. And it was a great record. I mean, when I was doing it, I thought that it was a real good record. I didn't know that it was going to be as big as it became.
Yes.
But Jaco was a fantastic musician, great bass player, fantastic.
He was an important musician
Oh
not
yeah.
like only for the bass. And if you listen the other solo album like Word of Mouth, it is very big band sounds.
Oh yeah.
He was a genius, but I think that he died so young.
Yeah, it was unfortunate that that happened. Um, and you know, like people have many stories about Jaco, but
Mm.
I only talk about the good times that I had with him, and uh, how he was a great person, and he had a great family, and he, you know, being a good person, he became a great musician. And that's what I talk about because I had really good times with him and we made great music. You know, a lot of people have other stories and they go,
Yes, I know it. I know it.
I, I
Strange
don't,
stories about him.
I don't talk about
Yeah,
that.
no, 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 no,
You know,
no,
it
no.
doesn't make any sense for me to talk about it because it wasn't positive. And the times that I spent with him were really positive times. So that's what I talk about.
And Lenny, I don't know if you know about Jaco was a friend of an Italian bassist. He was in a prog band that is called Premiata Forneria Marconi (PFM), and the bassist of this band was a huge friend of Jaco because Jaco teach to him to play the fretless
Oh, okay.
because the bassist was not Italian but French. The
Mm.
name is Patrick Zivas, and they recorded in the mid-70s because there are so much popular in my town in Italy, Premiata Fornea Marconi, and in 1976-77 there was in Burbank and
Oh,
record an important album, and maybe I will send you on WhatsApp. The album was Jet Lag, and inside this album there is so many jazz rock like Return to Forever, and I
oh,
want to send you the sound because
sure.
in those days they are very very shocked by those people who have a report, Return to Forever, Miles Davis.
Sure. I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
Yes, I will send you. But
Okay.
Lenny, your solo career, for me, it is very a good one because not so many drummers can do this.
Well, I don't know. I just do what I do. You know, I heard what I heard, and I tried to make music that was close to what I heard here and here.
From the head
And
and the heart. Okay.
yes, yes, yes.
My favorite one was Streamline with Marcus Miller.
Yeah, yeah.
Streamline, it is very, very not so commercial, but great composition.
Yes.
Because the fault of so many drummers is to become a classical disco drummer, and in your case, not a disco drummer. You was a fusion jazz rock. And
Yes.
if you think about the News and Summer or your project 29,
Yeah.
it is very straight, very, very stay attacked to the jazz rock point. And it is very important for a musician to stay in his genre.
Well, you know, I helped create it. So, you know, there was a lot more expansion that could be explored within the genre that we had started. And sometimes, you know, a genre is created, and then what happens is you bring other genres into what it is that you created. and then it expands and it becomes bigger. So that's where later on it became, I guess, fusion, because what they, I guess, said was happening is there was this fusion of these different kinds of musics
Yes.
that were
Different
coming.
styles
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
a unique thing. And
Yeah.
Lenny, in your career like a producer, you produce Chaka Khan,
Yes.
an important singer. And not
Um,
so many people do this thing. Producer, solo career, be a sideman.
well, I mean, if you're a musician, and a musician plays all different kinds of musics, and the expansion of what a musician is, you can become a producer, you can become someone who's a composer.
Okay.
So all of those things come from initially being a musician and trying to expand on what it is that you do and have more of a vision that's inclusive of all these different kinds of things. That's what happens. It's just a general transition into expanding on what it is that you do.
And I want to say this because I think that you're proud about this groove. And another one who freaked me out was on the second album of Di Meola, Elegant Gypsy. The tune was Race with the Devil on the Spanish Highway.
Yeah. Dun-dun-dun. Yeah.
Ta-dum,
Yeah.
ta-dum, dum, dum, dum. Like prog. And Lenny, it is a pleasure to talk with you. I want
Thank you.
to say thank you for your time,
Thank you
for
so
your
much.
availability.
Yes.
And if you want, I will send you this conversation.
Please.
So you can put it down. So you can put it down on your channels.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I send you the PFM Jet Lag album. So you heard about they take your sound of Return to Forever.
Please, I would love to hear it.
Okay. And now I want to ask you this. Now you play Gretsch or not? Yes?
Yes.
Gretsch?
Yes.
Gretsch? And for the cymbals?
I have
Istanbul. Istanbul.
Yes, it's my own line of cymbals. But Istanbul Agop. And
Agop.
it's called Epoch. 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 Those are my cymbals, yeah.
And in the Return to Forever, Gretsch and the cymbal?
Silgen.
Not paste. Not
No.
pasty.
No.
Okay. Okay.
I did a couple of times. I did use pasty hi-hats.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Lenny, thank you for
Yes.
your time. And thank you for everything and for your inspiration to me. Grazie
Thank
a
you
tutti.
so much.
Grazie a tutti. Ci sentiamo prossimamente con un'altra diretta molto interessante. Thank you, Lenny.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao a tutti, grazie.